The medical examiner later testified that this is how she could be sure to the horrible brutality of the rapes, beatings, and murders. Further knowledge of the crimes came from the killers themselves, most of whom, after the murders, were seen bragging and swapping the jewelry they had stolen from the girls with all their friends at school. The 5 non-juvenile defendants in this case, the members of the gang, were tried in capital murder in Harris County and convicted and sentenced to death. Yet years later, on account of shrill protests of death penalty opponents statewide, 2 of the members had their sentences reduced to simply life in prison. Today, nearly 14 years later, only one of the murderers has been executed for these horrible crimes. In direct response to the rare horror of the Pena-Urban case, 2 very important things changed in the criminal justice system in Texas. The family was then allowed to address the convicted killer after the trial, changing a precedent in Texas courts. This is now done as a matter of routine. The other change came from the Texas Department of Corrections, which instituted a new policy allowing victims' families the right to view the execution of the perpetrators. In light of new scientific research and hypotheses they have mentioned, some opponents of the death penalty argue that those executed might actually feel pain when they die for what they've done. I would like to know if these same opponents have any conjectures as to how much pain Jennifer Ehrman and Elizabeth Pena felt as they were repeatedly gang raped, strangled with their own shoelaces, and ditched by the bayou like some piece of trash. If science does reveal the possible pain in lethal injection, I'm positive science will also reveal a painless alternative for justice. And sure, convicted murderers such as Cantu and others involved in the Pena-Urban case have numerous powerful and endowed organizations speaking for them, conducting research for them, buying airtime and publicity, bringing gifts to death row, etc. But who speaks for the victims in these cases? Who speaks for those who have been brutally silenced by their actions? All over the country, nearly every day, news stories bemoan and hype the alarming over 1,000 executed criminals in this nation. But among those rating-grabbing stories, it is the stories regarding the ripple effects of the heinous crimes that these murderers were executed for committing which get lost in all the hype. Who is counting the victims in addition to those convicted perpetrators? Well, some are still counting. A conservative estimate from the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund, in conjunction with the Death Penalty Information Center, in early 2006, put the number of victims from these 1,000 murders executed at 1,895. Since this estimate was made nearly a year ago, an additional 29 criminals have been executed by the state. Using this conservative estimate as a guide, that's approximately 55 more victims, putting their numbers well over 1,900. That's a little excess on the victim side, 1,000 to 1,900. Nearly 900 individuals, each with unmeasurable network of family, friends, and loved ones, also victimized by these cruel and senseless acts. The attention given to these 1,000 murderers is repugnant, especially when the loudest voices think the death of a convicted murderer is a tragedy. Yet the deaths and suffering of countless victims is only an easily ignored statistic in this debate. So with victim numbers like these, why do we hear so much about the killers, and so little about the victims and their loved ones who are left behind to pick up the pieces of shattered lives? Why such a national issue when Gallup polls taken in October 2005 show that 64% of Americans polled responded yes to the question, are you in favor of the death penalty for convicted murderers? I'm especially confused by the fuss when this statistic was strongly reinforced in another Gallup poll posing the exact same question only 8 months ago. The support for the death penalty for a person convicted of murder actually rose in 2005 from 64 to 65%. In fact, another question in the same poll asking, quote, in your opinion, is the death penalty imposed too often today or not often enough, got a 51% not often enough response from Americans nationwide. Approval of the death penalty is coherent with a set of beliefs shared by the majority of Americans. This belief set values the sanctity of life, the protection of the innocent, and justice for victims. This may strike many as a hypocritical contradiction, but consider this argument as defined by Stephen D. Stewart, a prosecuting attorney in Indiana. He explains, quote, I believe life is sacred. It cheapens the life of an innocent murder victim to say that society has no right to keep the murderer from ever killing again. In my view, society has not only the right, but the duty to act in self-defense to protect the innocent. In our belief, society does have this duty, and it must be upheld. Thank you.
Campaign to end the death penalty will now
not respond for another 10 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Stephanie Kaniart, and I am obviously speaking for CEDP. First of all, when we do hear the stories of the crime that do bring people to find themselves in front of courts, sometimes because they committed the crime, sometimes because they didn't commit the crime, you have to stop and think about the stories that are being told about the victims. They are terrible stories, they are horrifying stories, and if they don't make everyone's stomach churn, then that person isn't human. And it's because they horrify us in such a profound way that we are willing in response to kill. Because it seems like that sort of answer is justified, because it seems that that sort of answer will somehow bring a moral balance into the world. But my opponent brings up another point that makes us wonder whether or not killing one for every one victim is actually the answer. She says at the end of the day, the one thing we have to think about is whether or not we are protecting the innocent. And the number one problem with the death penalty is maybe sometimes we are putting the right person to death. Whether or not we have the right to make that judgment call is a whole other conversation. But time and time again, the evidence has been in front of us that no matter how many people we kill, and in the past decade, we have killed 702 people. And considering we can't kill on the Sabbath, Saturday or Sunday, that's one person every 3.7 days. It's kind of clear that we know whether or not the death penalty works. And the answer is that it doesn't work simply because it constantly serves not only to not justify the crimes of yesterday, but to put more people into danger tomorrow. The ultimate problem with capital punishments is that countries with the death penalty, states in the United States with the death penalty, have higher crime rates. They have more people dying as a result of trying to put criminals to death. The FBI Preliminary Uniform Crime Report in 2002, a peak year of executions, noted that the South conducted 82% of executions, the Northeast less than 1%. The South saw a 2% increase in violent crime, the Northeast saw a 5% decrease. The South had 1/3 more homicides per rate of population than the Northeast. The numbers get even more frightening when we look at what's going on in states. In years where California has performed executions, it has seen a 10% rise in homicides. In years where California has not performed executions, it has seen a 4.8 decrease in homicides. Countries comparable to the United States, the New York Times tells us, notably those of Western Europe who have abolished the death penalty in every case for at least 30 years, have rates for the highest countries at 1/3 of what the United States sees of violent crime. And furthermore, when Canada abolished the death penalty in 1975, in a period of 25 years, it saw a 23% decrease in crime, something that we are not even close to achieving. Why is it that the death penalty doesn't work? Well, the first reason is because it pretends to deter crime by giving a big punishment, ignoring the fact that crimes of passion cannot be deterred, and ignoring the fact that people who commit murders don't plan on getting caught. And for that reason, they don't take the punishment into that much of consideration. But another problem is that the death penalty costs us so much. We spend so much trying to punish a few criminals that we end up sacrificing the entire justice system to a system that doesn't work.